There's a version of your life where you earn more money every year and somehow end up with less freedom than when you started, not because of bad luck, not because of a crisis, because of a series of small, completely reasonable decisions that quietly rewired the life you were building without you ever noticing. Think about the last time you upgraded something, a phone maybe, or a streaming service, or your apartment. It felt like a reward, something you earned. But here's what nobody tells you about upgrades: they don't just cost money once, they reset your entire baseline. And once your baseline moves up, it almost never moves back down. That reset has a name. Economists call it lifestyle inflation, and it is the single most effective wealth destroyer most people will never see coming because it never looks like destruction. It looks like progress. Here's a number that should stop you cold. Every single $1,000 you add to your annual spending requires $25,000 in invested wealth just to sustain it forever. That's not intuition. That's mathematics. The 4% rule is the principle that you can safely withdraw 4% from an investment portfolio each year without running out of money. In plain terms, for every dollar you spend annually, you need $25 sitting behind it, silently working. So when you add $500 a month to your rent, you haven't just added $500 a month to your expenses. You've added $150,000 to the finish line of your financial life. Let that land for a second. Now imagine doing that not once, but a dozen times across 30 years. A nicer car, a bigger place, a gym membership, a meal kit service, a premium phone plan, each one reasonable, each one deserved, each one quietly pushing that finish line further away. In 2023, the average American household spent over $61,000 a year. That's the average, not the extravagant life, the ordinary one. And yet, the median retirement account balance for Americans in their late 50s and early 60s sits at roughly $87,000. $87,000 for people a decade away from needing a million or more. Somewhere between the income and the retirement balance, something is consuming the gap. And it's not emergencies. It's not bad luck. It's the slow, steady accumulation of lifestyle upgrades that each felt completely justified in the moment. Here's the part that genuinely surprises people. High earners are often not wealthy, not because they spend recklessly, but because they scale their lifestyle proportionally with every raise. The research behind The Millionaire Next Door found this pattern again and again. The people quietly building real wealth often looked unremarkable from the outside. Modest houses, older cars, no visible signals of success, while the people in the big houses and luxury cars were frequently one bad year away from financial collapse. We've been taught to read wealth in the wrong places. So, how does this actually happen in a real life? You graduate, land your first real job, earn a modest salary. Life is lean, but you're managing. Then you get a raise. And here's where the story splits into two very different futures. In the far more common version, the raise feels like permission. Permission to upgrade. Permission to finally stop pinching every penny. A nicer apartment. A better car. Dinners out more often. Life feels like it's moving in the right direction. And then you get another raise. And the cycle repeats. The problem isn't the upgrade. The problem is that each upgrade becomes invisible almost immediately. Within a few months, the nicer apartment just feels like where you live. The novelty evaporates, but the cost never does. It compounds. Psychologists call this hedonic adaptation, the human tendency to return to a baseline level of happiness regardless of positive changes in your circumstances. The upgrade stops feeling special, but the price tag stays on your life permanently. Say you upgrade your car responsibly after 8 years in the same vehicle. You move from a $30,000 car to a $50,000 car. That's a $20,000 difference. Reasonable, right? But that $20,000 invested at 8% annually would grow to over $200,000 in 30 years. You didn't just buy a nicer car, you traded $200,000 of future wealth for it. The car will be worth a few $1,000s in a decade. The investment would have been worth a fortune. That is the actual transaction. Most people just never see it framed that way. Apply the same logic to your apartment. Moving from a $1,500 rental to a $2,000 rental costs $6,000 more per year. Under the 4% rule, sustaining that extra spending in retirement requires an additional $150,000 in your investment portfolio. One apartment upgrade, $150,000 added to your retirement target. And most people make that kind of upgrade multiple times without ever calculating what they've added to the distance between today and financial freedom. We're not just talking about big purchases. The subscription economy has become a masterclass in invisible lifestyle inflation. Over the last decade, subscription-based services grew by more than 435%. Streaming, fitness apps, meal kits, software. Each one costs between $5 and $30 a month. Each one feels negligible. Studies show the average person underestimates their monthly subscription spending by over $130 a month. That's more than $1,500 a year, quietly leaving your account every single month for services you may have forgotten you even signed up for. $1,500 a year. Under the 4% rule, that requires $37,500 in invested assets just to sustain it in retirement, for services most people can barely name when asked. That number tends to land differently when you say it out loud. This is what makes lifestyle inflation so dangerous. It doesn't arrive as a catastrophe. It arrives as convenience, as comfort, as things that just make life a little easier, a little nicer, a little more like the life you feel you deserve. That's the delivery mechanism. Let's talk about time, because that's the real currency being spent here. There's a concept called the savings rate, the percentage of your income you save rather than spend. And the relationship between your savings rate and how long you have to work is not linear. It's brutal. At a 10% savings rate, better than most Americans actually achieve, it takes approximately 43 years to accumulate enough to stop working. 43 years, nearly a full career, from graduation to old age, just to reach the finish line. But at a 50% savings rate, that timeline collapses to roughly 17 years. Same income, different choices about where the money goes. The difference between 43 years and 17 years is not luck, and it is not income. It is lifestyle. You might be thinking, 50% savings sounds impossible, and for many people in many cities, it is. But the deeper point isn't the specific number, it's that every percentage point you redirect from spending to saving cuts real years off your working life. Every lifestyle upgrade does the opposite. The cruelest part is that the upgrades don't make us proportionally happier. Decades of psychological research confirm that beyond a certain threshold of comfort, additional spending yields sharply diminishing returns on well-being. The jump from struggling to stable is transformative. The jump from nice to nicer, almost invisible. But the financial cost of moving from nice to nicer is identical to the cost of moving from struggle to stability. You pay the same price for a fraction of the emotional benefit. The math of happiness and the math of money are running in opposite directions. So why do we keep upgrading? Because lifestyle inflation isn't really about money. It's about identity. When you earn more, you feel like you should look like someone who earns more. Your neighborhood, your car, your wardrobe become signals to others, but more powerfully to yourself. Each upgrade is evidence that you're making progress, that you're becoming the person you're trying to be. And that's what makes it so hard to resist, because it doesn't feel like a financial decision. It feels like a personal one. Here's the reframe that changes everything. The number in your investment account is also a signal, a deeply personal one. It represents options: the option to walk away from a job that's draining you, to take a risk on something you care about, to weather a health crisis without panic. That number is freedom, denominated in dollars. And every lifestyle upgrade is a direct trade of that freedom for something that will feel ordinary within 6 months. The thing you're buying isn't comfort, it's the temporary feeling of arrival, and then the baseline moves, and you're back where you started. The people who build real wealth quietly have usually internalized one counterintuitive idea: that restraint is not deprivation, that choosing not to upgrade is itself a form of abundance. Every dollar they don't spend on inflating their lifestyle is a dollar working for them, compounding toward the life they actually want. There's a version of your future where the finish line never moves, where you make more money and choose, deliberately, consciously, not to inflate the life around it, where the raise goes to the investment account instead of the apartment upgrade, where the new subscription gets weighed against what it truly costs. That version of your future doesn't require a dramatic sacrifice. It requires something harder: the awareness to see these decisions for what they are, in the moment they're being made, before the baseline has already shifted, before the apartment feels like home, before the car just feels like your car, just feels like. Remember that apartment upgrade? The one that seemed so reasonable. 500 more a month for a nicer place, a better neighborhood, more space. $150,000 added to your retirement target. Not with a crisis, not with a mistake anyone would call a mistake, just a quiet, reasonable seeming decision. And then the baseline shifted up one more time, just like it always does. That is how the story usually goes. Not with a dramatic turning point, but with an accumulation of sensible upgrades that nobody ever questioned, stacked quietly across decades. Every upgrade resets your floor, and every reset of your floor raises the ceiling of wealth you'll need to ever be free. That is the trap. It's elegant, invisible, and almost universal. The only exit is the moment you see it clearly, and choose just once to hold the line instead of move it. You now know something most people will never stop to see. The question is what you do with it the next time life offers you an upgrade.